For this project this week, we made elephant toothpaste. We used hydrogen peroxide, yeast, warm water, and food coloring. We start by putting the hydrogen peroxide and the food coloring in a container and mix the yeast. So we put the hydrogen peroxide and the food coloring in the container that we were going to use for the whole project. And then in a separate container, we mixed yeast with warm water and then poured it into the container. We mixed yeast with warm water, mixed it up, make sure it was all mixed up, and then poured that into the container with the hydrogen peroxide. So a little bit about hydrogen peroxide and yeast. So hydrogen peroxide is a molecule made up of hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms. Under the right conditions, hydrogen peroxide will undergo a chemical reaction to break down into two parts, water and oxygen. When a chemical that is made up of only one molecule breaks down into two different smaller molecules, it's called a decomposition reaction. In this experiment, this particular decomposition reaction is also referred to as an exothermic reaction, meaning it gives off heat. Yeast contains an enzyme called catalase. The enzyme is called catalase because it works as a catalyst in this particular reaction. A catalyst is a substance that speeds up the rate of a chemical reaction without changing its products. The yeast is added to the hydrogen peroxide to speed up the reaction. The catalyst in the yeast speeds up the process of breaking down the hydrogen peroxide and thus causing it to produce oxygen and water more quickly. So whenever we put the yeast into the hydrogen peroxide, where it's already starting to break down, or into the hydrogen peroxide, it starts speeding up that reaction time, and that's why you get the elephant toothpaste, or so we call it. In this experiment, the oxygen gets trapped by the dishwashing detergent as many tiny bubbles will form. What's happened in this experiment is the foam is made as that dishwashing detergent traps tiny oxygen bubbles created by the chemical reaction that is happening inside the bubble. The thick foam that's formed starts to ooze out of the bottle, and it looks like toothpaste when toothpaste is being squeezed out of its tube, which is why it's called toothpaste. It's called elephant toothpaste because it's so big. It's like an elephant-sized toothpaste. And I have a video of my experiment. So mine didn't quite come out like I'd like it to. The reason being is I didn't have the correct bottle for it. It would have been better with one with a little bit more of like a cylinder top. I didn't have one at the house. It also didn't have quite as much reaction as I'd like because I used a lower concentration of hydrogen peroxide. I used 3%, and typically you like to use higher. I just used what I had around the house again. But it still had the chemical reaction to where you could still understand what is happening, and then just know that if I would have used a higher concentration of hydrogen peroxide in a different container, the results would have been a lot greater. But in the end, it all worked out to show the reaction that was happening. Thank you.